Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Newark.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This day is an invitation to enter this space fully, to bring all of who we are with us, to raise our arms, to twirl, to dance, to reveal to the world our wholeness, beautiful and unique. This morning is an invitation to reach gently inside ourselves, to touch with love the wounds pressing on our hearts, to lift up our hurt and wrap it in the healing gauze of this community's caring. This hour is an invitation to hold our pain a little less tightly, to lay it on the soft velvet of each other's soothing, to catch up our fears in a beautiful lace net, woven of our collective love and strength. This moment is an invitation to go deeper into life, to be fully present with open hearts, with one another, to connect with the joy and the wonder that are always here when we enter the stream of all that is sacred. Come, let us worship together.
As we light our chalice this morning, may this flame be an invitation to kindle your enthusiasm, to spark your imagination, and to warm your compassionate heart.
You know, everywhere we look, everything we hear sometimes seems to be telling us that life is serious business. Spirit of life, free us from the constraints of responsibility from time to time. Remind us that to live is also to enjoy life, to revel in its beauty, its unpredictability, and its humor. To truly live is not only to attend to what must be done to survive. To live life to the fullest doesn't mean being endlessly weighed down with the challenges and miseries of the world. It doesn't mean we can't let go of our worries, our grief, our concern. It doesn't mean that we can't set them down and pick them up again sometime later on. Let us see the opportunities we have every day to cultivate our imaginations, to be curious, to laugh at the absurd, to be playful and silly, in order to shake up and rearrange the pathways of our minds. Because we are meant to meet life with enthusiasm. We are meant to embrace all of it. May we slow down enough to immerse ourselves in the beautiful present moment, to let go and dance to the music, skip down the hall, blow some bubbles, or any of 1,000 other things we can do to reconnect with our playful nature. And in this way, may we also connect with the sacred flow of all life and the all that is. May it be so.
Our reading today is from Maria Lugones. Excerpt from her paper, Playfulness, World Traveling and Loving Perception. We are by the riverbank. The river is very, very low, almost dry, but mostly is wet stones, gray on the outside. We walk on the stones for a while. You pick up a stone and crash it onto the others. As it breaks, it is quite wet inside and is very colorful, very pretty. I pick up a stone and break it and run toward the piece to see the colors. They are beautiful. I laugh and bring the pieces back to you, and you are doing the same with your pieces. We keep on crashing stones for hours, anxious to see the beautiful new colors. We are playing. The playfulness of our activity does not presuppose that it is a particular form of play with its own rules. Rather, the attitude that carries us through the activity, a playful attitude, turns the activity into play. Our activity has no rules, though it is certainly intentional activity, and we both understand what we are doing. The playfulness that gives meaning to our activity includes uncertainty, but in this case, the uncertainty is an openness to surprise. This is a particular metaphysical attitude that does not expect the world to be neatly packaged, ruly. Rules may fail to explain what we are doing. We are not self-important. We are not fixed in particular constructions of ourselves, which is part of saying that we are open to self-construction. We are not worried about competence. We are not wedded to a particular way of doing things. While playful, we will not have abandoned ourselves, nor are we stuck in any particular world. We are there creatively. We are not passive. Playfulness is in part an openness to being a fool, which is a combination of not worrying about competence, not being self-important, not taking norms as sacred, and finding ambiguity and double edges a source of wisdom and delight.
Has anyone here ever swung on a rope swing? Wow, look at that. A rope swing. Okay, got another hand there. Well, I have too. And when my son Jamie was 12, he went to a day camp up in Connecticut where we were living at the time. And on family day, all the parents were invited to tour the camp and have lunch with all the campers and then go and have a swim at the official waterfront on the lake there at the camp. And they seemed to have a lot of rules about what we could do and where we could go to keep everybody safe, of course. So Jamie and I spent a little time in the water, and then he wanted to take me for a hike along a trail that went around the edge of the lake. So we got about 5 minutes down the trail, and we came upon a ladder with about 4 or 5 steps that led up to a platform between 2 trees. And there was a big branch hanging out over the water. Guess what was hanging on the branch? A rope swing, that's right. So there were a couple of people there, a father and a daughter, and they were taking turns swinging out on the rope and then dropping into the water with a really impressive, like, splash. And then whoever was popping up to the surface, you'd see like this great big grin on their face. And my son whispered, "You want to do it?" I said, well, I wasn't sure we were really allowed to do that. And since we also didn't want to intrude on their fun, maybe we should just keep on walking. He was like, yeah, okay. I could tell he wasn't sure how brave he was feeling anyway. So we kept going. And you know, to be honest, I was also listening to a little voice in my head that said, come on, Kim, aren't you a little old for this? So we kept going on our walk, and then we didn't make it all the way around the lake. We turned around, we came back, and came upon this rope swing again. So right when we got there, there were a mother and daughter there, and the mother was just getting out of the water, and she was coming up on the bank and headed straight toward me. She looked up and saw me, and then she got this really embarrassed look on her face, and she said, I'm probably the only mother who's crazy enough to do this. Well, that was it. I said, no, you're not. I'm going to do it too. So I do have to confess, I've loved rope swings ever since I was a little kid. My granddad put one up in his yard. My dad put one up in our yard. But these were all on land. But I thought, how many times in your life do you get to go swinging out on a rope swing and cannonball into a beautiful lake? So I thought of something else, too. Why were we, this other mother and I, buying into the idea that we shouldn't do this fun and silly thing? That in doing it, we'd be doing something somehow inappropriate, something that might label us as A, mentally unbalanced, B, refusing to act our age, or maybe even C, that dreaded sexist trope, unladylike. My son told me his counselors said to the kids, this swing could be dangerous. If you let go too soon or too late, you'd hit shallow water and rocks. Bearing this in mind, I climbed up, grabbed the rope, took a breath, went swinging out over the water, and then when I felt the arc reach its maximum, I let go and I dropped into the water. I did not hit rocks. I came up and I was sputtering, but I did it, and now I had the big grin on my face. Jamie took his time to get up his courage, but then he was out and dropping into safe waters. And he came up with a proud grin. A couple more times for each of us, and we both felt we'd accomplished what we came for, not letting the opportunity go by for some pure fun and a little daring. Poet and spiritual teacher Mark Nepo says, "We are each faced with the endless and repeatable task of discovering or uncovering our enthusiasm, which means, in essence, being at one with the energy of God or the divine." The word comes from the Greek en, one with, and theos, the divine. It seems that the qualities of attention, risk, and self-compassion allow us to be at one with the energy of the whole, and the result is enthusiasm, that deep sense of oneness. As such, enthusiasm is not a mood that can be willed or forced. Rather, it is the ripple that follows the stone we throw into the water. It can only be felt after we immerse ourselves in life. For many of us, these moments of enthusiasm, of immersing ourselves fully in life, may be rare or fleeting. Our society draws us into a realm of productivity and rigid roles. It says to us that as adults, we should take ourselves seriously. Many of us lead busy lives, and as we focus on checking off as many things each day on our to-do lists as we can forget to laugh, to lighten up, to see the humor and the absurdity of things all around us. We can resist the impulses to be silly and playful. As the Unitarian transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "It is a happy talent to know how to play." He understood that in order to have balance in our lives and to be truly open to the Spirit, we need playfulness. As young children, we're open and trusting, caught up in the moment, going with the flow of things. Everything's new and special. And we haven't yet learned to censor ourselves. Most of us can probably remember a time as kids when we were completely absorbed, engaged in the experience, and feeling that joie de vivre, that simple delight. Maybe we were dancing to music. Maybe it was kneeling in the mud and making mud pies. Some of us liked to draw or paint. Or maybe we were just lying in the grass, looking up at the sky and finding funny shapes in the clouds as they drifted by. I can picture some of those moments, and I hope you can too. Inside us is a child who remembers the energy and delight of play, say Marianne and Frederick Broussat, the authors of Spiritual Literacy. That child helps us feel the pleasures of being, end quote. There was a time in my life, not long before that rope swing experience, when I lost touch with that part of myself. I'm an oldest child. Any oldists or onlys here? Okay. Well, then you know, we can be very responsible. And sometimes when life seems to demand a lot from us, that responsible self can get our lives very out of balance. when the therapist I was seeing asked me what I did for fun and I had no answer. I knew it was time to make some changes. For many of us, it's hard to let go of traveling a straight and narrow path through our days, a ruly path, as Maria Lugones calls it. I like the image of a rope swing because it speaks to the element of risk involved in stepping out of our usual roles and letting go into the unknown. At the time I was seeing the therapist, there were some concerning things in my life that felt beyond my control. I often felt worried and anxious about the future. And when we're in that state of mind, whether it's about personal issues or concerns in the larger world, when we're worried and anxious, our instinct is often to try to minimize risk, to tighten up, to maintain control. But when we try to do that, we lose a lot. We may lose our sense of spontaneity. We can lose our openness to new experiences and unexpected outcomes. And along with those losses, we can lose those simple pleasures of being. We can lose our ability to be playful. Looking back on that day of swinging on the rope swing, letting go and dropping into the water, I can now see it as a healing moment for myself. I realized that I need to take those risks to be playful, to be a little silly and undignified and, yes, even unladylike. And I made a promise to myself that I've kept, which is to honor the playful part of myself. Despite being an oldest, I have to resist that. Because an attitude of playfulness does so much for us on so many levels. It relieves stress. It refreshes our minds and bodies. It can even help us heal from psychic wounds and physical illnesses. These are all important benefits. And for us as religious seekers, play is also an important doorway to spiritual experience. It allows our egos to fall away and lets us become completely absorbed in the moment. Intuition, imagination, and creativity are all linked to spirituality and all require a playful spirit. This playful spirit allows us to suspend our judgment and encourages an attitude of openness to whatever may come. This orientation of openness becomes a fertile seedbed for spiritual insight and wisdom. When we create from this playful place of flow in the present moment, we become co-creators with the universe. As the improvisational musician Stephen Nachmanovich writes, the creative process is a spiritual path. There is a unitive experience that is the essence of the creative mystery. Our playful creativity allows our consciousness to open to that which is larger than our limited selves. A spirit of playfulness is something that each of us can cultivate within ourselves. Sometimes, like launching ourselves out over the water on a rope swing, we might have to give ourselves a little push. It takes courage to be unserious. If we're concerned about appearing responsible and competent, anybody concerned about that? It might take a lot of courage. Maria Lugones, in the reading we heard earlier, says that cultivating a playful attitude means we have to be willing to look foolish. It means risking uncertainty, challenging our self-importance, and realizing that some rules of life can be broken. But the more we can embrace the idea of living life lightly, without taking things overly seriously, and the more we practice playfulness, the more it becomes an integral part of who we are. Author and inspirational speaker Leo Buscaglia. Anybody recognize that name? Yeah, they used to call him Dr. Love. I never met him, but I could just picture him. He lived life with enthusiasm in the original sense of the word, being one with that which is most sacred. He was one of the most playful people I've ever heard of. He once said, "I'm often accused of being childish. I prefer to interpret that as childlike. I still get wildly enthusiastic about little things. I play with leaves. I skip down the street and run against the wind. I never water my garden without soaking myself." And it was after such joyful moments, he said, that he was at his most creative and produced his best work. If Leo Buscaglia's way of life sounds too silly to you, I want to challenge you to try it. What is there to be afraid of? So you make a fool of yourself. It's a good exercise in holding ourselves a little more lightly. As Marianne and Frederick Broussard say, playing around is a good and holy thing. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. And you don't have to do it alone. Play with a dog. Play with little children. Play pickleball. Play in whatever way brings forth your childlike spirit. If you like rope swings like I do and you could still do it, go for it. And we all have physical limitations, so work with whatever you have. Because playfulness is not an activity. It's an orientation toward the world. And it comes from in here. We, all of us, seek wholeness. Recovering our playful selves is a way we can reclaim the spirit of our inner child, who, as it turns out, we need in order to be spiritually whole. Because it's through those child's eyes that we once again experience the world as new. Through those eyes, we find a lightness of being, and we make our lives richer than we ever thought possible. So may you make the courageous choice to nurture that playful child spirit within you. Let it show you the delightful world that we sometimes forget is always before us. And let it set our imaginations and our spirits free. May it be so. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage for all sorts of reasons. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings.